Good afternoon, friends. Thank you for tuning in. Welcome back to We Talk as One. This is The Balcony. This is where, of course, all the conversation, the best conversation happens. It's our chance to dig a little bit deeper, to have that long-form chat that you can't otherwise get, and speak to another brilliant, incredible guest. I hope you've been joining for the last few. We're very excited to have with us Monki here today. I'm going to do the proper intros in 1 second. We are live. We're lucky to be live. We're live in East London, here in Defected headquarters in Shoreditch. That means please get your questions in, your comments. We've got producer Mitch round the corner there, ready to elevate all the best questions. We will read them out during the next kind of 59 minutes as it is now. So yeah, like I said, I'm very excited to today be joined by Monki. You might have seen her actually just a couple of weeks ago in these very studios, kind of a bit that way, in our live DJ hatch here in Defected HQ, where she was playing to about, I think it was about 29,000 people at one point in our lively little press play event. We're going to be talking all about that and music and all sorts, because Monki's the most brilliant example, I think, of following your passions, which today I think is a very nice theme to kind of get stuck into. So without further ado, Monki, welcome.
Hi.
Very nice to see you again. Thank you for joining us on our sort of weird shelving balcony bit.
Thanks for having me.
Let's start with what I've just mentioned there, our last event a couple of weeks ago now on Twitch. Are you aware of like how big those moments are virtually? Because there's no crowd, you're in a otherwise empty space. What does that feel like?
Yeah, I think if we rewind it back to like one of the first things we did in ministry, which was almost a year ago now,
Yeah,
over a year ago.
Yeah, literally last week I think was the
anniversary of COVID. Fantastic. Not one we want to really remember. When we did that, it was a little bit like doing a radio show, I guess, where you don't really realise how many people you're reaching until you see the reaction to people from people online. And essentially with that one, it wasn't live as Twitch is now and was the other week. I didn't see the reaction until after my set. And so for that one, it was only until after my set, and I was like, wow, this is insane. Like you see the numbers, and you see people messaging you on Instagram and all the other socials, and you know there was NHS nurses raving in their ambulances and all this crazy stuff, and it really sort of brought people together. And then for this one, we obviously had a screen up, and we saw the messages come in live. And
do you like to read the messages, or does it unnerve you?
It doesn't unnerve me, but because it's kind of like in the corner, you just see a lot of like emojis pop up. So that's nice, and it was nice to be able to interact as well, because I think, my background's sorry, producer, I just smashed the microphone.
My background's radio, she's about to say. She
gets
a microphone.
My background being radio, it was really nice to have that live element again, because I just missed it. That's why we do radio, is to connect with people and share stories and share music. So
Melvo, one of our other DJs, said that. And some of the other artists who played that night were like, that's as close as it felt to being out there.
Yeah.
Would you agree?
Yeah, definitely. And Mitch was putting up the numbers, I think, on the screen as they got bigger and bigger and bigger, and I was like, oh, okay.
So did you respond to that like you would? So again, if you're playing a festival, a crowd, I'm assuming the ebb and flow of the crowd famously would dictate presumably your set to some degree. Does the same thing happen there in an environment like Twitch on a live stream?
I think in terms of interaction it does, because you're more likely to interact on the mic when it comes to Twitch, which some DJs do at festivals and clubs and stuff. I'm not really one to get on the mic at a festival or a club very often. But I think the nice element with Twitch is that you're not in a club setting. You're still playing live music, but you're not in a club setting. So the stories that you can tell with your set are almost a lot broader, because you're not expected to play bangers, I guess.
Yeah.
And you shouldn't always be expected to play bangers, but essentially you're there to entertain people and in your own style. So you saw it from the press play event. DJs were playing all kinds of music. It wasn't, essentially what you would typically go and see them for, but it was just music that they loved. So there's almost a broader window for you to explore when it comes to things like Twitch.
I think that's super interesting, and we'll come back to that. And I love what you were saying there about the idea of community and the idea of interaction. take us back to the start then, Monki, how we got to here. Maybe not right here today, but how you got to who you are. I know we're very lucky with some of this Twitch audience. There's lots of people who tune into these. I know there's lots of young people and they can see and hear what it is that you've been up to. Let's go back right to the beginnings. You mentioned radio. How did it all begin? Was music always a thing? How did you get into this world?
Yeah, I guess, well, it feels like so long ago now. It's a funny one because I'm still in my 20s, but I think people feel like I've been around for a minute. And if we're going back sort of when it first started, I think music was always something in my household that was a strong, it was always like a strong element in my household, but I didn't really realise it was, essentially. My mum was always listening to dance music when I was a kid. She was a big Prodigy fan, loved the Chemical Brothers. I found old vinyls in the attic when I was a little bit older, and it was like, 808 State and stuff like that. So it was always a strong element in the house. My uncle as well, who I lived with, who's quite close in age with me, listened to like a lot of garage. There was that very UK-centric sort of time when garage was massive as well. So that played a part, and it wasn't until I would say about 16 or 17 when I was going into college. So for everyone in America, that's the last 2 years of high school, not university, which at the time you didn't have to do. So you could leave school at 16. And I was going into college and I was studying things I didn't want to study. I was studying like law and economics, and these were the things left. I couldn't get into the music class. I wasn't super musical, didn't play an instrument. And I discovered radio is how I discovered dance music. But it's not that I discovered it because I already knew it from my mum and from my uncle, but I sort of rediscovered it. That's nice. In my own sense. I found stuff that I was really into. I was listening to like a lot of pirate radio, which was just legal radio in London. And back then, and still now, you turn the dial, you could find pirate radio stations all over the place. And I was listening to a lot of specialist radio on Radio 1. And I just remember being like, what is this? What is this music? I've never heard this before. And then starting, researching on the internet. And ironically, when I was younger, I always thought clubs weren't a place for me, because the way that I looked at clubs was a very commercial way. It was the West End. Yeah. Girls got very dressed up. You didn't get in unless you were wearing heels. You were wearing hair and makeup. It just wasn't me. I'm still not like that now. I wasn't then. And I was like, well, that's never going to be into that. And it wasn't until I discovered the underground where I was like, oh, this space is somewhere I feel comfortable being myself and somewhere where I can enjoy. And I discovered that through radio. So radio was my entry point for the underground and dance music.
And did you have a natural ability with it in terms of speaking and doing radio? Was that something that you needed? I was going to say, because that's quite a big leap, right?
Yeah.
Being able to jump to that side of the microphone.
No, I didn't at all. Not at all. And it wasn't until I heard a woman on the radio that I realised, oh, this is a career path I could follow. And it was Annie Mac on a Friday night. It was the first woman that I heard present specialist music. And it literally wasn't until I heard her voice I was like, oh, that's something I could do. And we'll touch on it later, I'm sure. But before that, I wanted to play football, and I couldn't. And I only saw men playing football professionally. And so I ended that sort of dream, I guess, and I moved on to music.
Isn't it incredible the simplicity of who you can see right in front of you? Yeah. Having an effect on whether you think you can do that or not.
Yeah.
It's so powerful, and I think it's so quickly forgotten as you grow up.
Yeah, and it's extremely important, when you're young and so impressionable, but it also, it happens to us as adults as well. It's not just kids, but no, broadcasting did not come naturally to me. I remember, recording links, practicing links on this sort of laptop I had, but reversing the microphone so you could record the speaker, so it was a microphone, and just holding the laptop up to my face and recording links and then like placing them over music and seeing how that sounded and stuff.
That's like my son does TikTok now.
Yeah. It's like a really basic TikTok,
by
basically.
Any means necessary.
Yeah.
I love that. But that kind of, there's something in that. There's something in the sheer lo-fi ability, because ultimately you're creating, you're making, and you're probably learning a shed load of mistakes as you do it. I'm going to try and read out some questions as we go through, which, if you've watched some of the previous episodes of these interviews, I normally hog the questions to a nice terrible, but I get far too into my guests. There was a nice comment from one of the people watching, 10,000 people watching at the moment. Annie Mac paved the way for the rest of us, which is really nice, I think, a point that you've already mentioned. Dario2803, do you think virtual platforms like Twitch have opened up spaces for women, for example, or even disabled people as performers, as consumers? Point about accessibility.
Yeah, I think, you know, now, especially with technology, not anyone, but a lot more people can stream and, you know, be a DJ online and have that source to put out their work. So something like Twitch does make things a lot more accessible. I think, you know, the more technology can reach people in terms of it's not just the top 1%, it's everyone, the more, like this person said, I can't see it now, but the more accessible different kinds of people are going to be, and you know, you're going to see all these different kinds of people do those things.
We said that a lot. I mean, the show that you mentioned, the first virtual festival Defected did that you played from Ministry, that was one of our big points when we came out the other side on the Saturday morning looking at stuff was, I can't even remember the number, let's say it was 2-3 million.
Yeah.
You simply can't get 2 or 3 million people into a club, right?
Yeah.
And you sort of forget that moment of sheer accessibility throughout the world where people want to come and see you, Monki, but they simply can't because they're in the Cayman Islands or wherever they might be. But that's a pretty cool part. I've seen you've actually quoted, I saw, and you said something like live streams are the new pirate radio.
Yeah.
So you've just talked about your love of something like pirate radio. Yeah, I know it's quite a London thing, but or certainly a UK thing. Do you see that as ultimately a good thing then, because it's just giving people the chops to get out and broadcast?
Yeah, definitely. I think I was kind of almost like the last, maybe like generation to come through pirate radio, because essentially the pirate radio station that I was at is called Rinse FM. And when it was pirate, it was only around the corner from here, actually. It's now a community station.
And it's a big deal, right, for those who don't know, Rinse FM, very influential.
Massive, you know, massive. It really paved the way for genres, grime, garage, dubstep, which are now sort of more internationally known. Even you know, house music had house music shows, jungle, drum and bass. So yeah, it was literally around the corner from here. And it was a pirate station, which basically meant it illegally broadcasted on the FM dial around London. And then I sort of came as an intern at the back end of their journey. It was going long before I arrived, you know, 10 sort of years. And I was 17, 18 at the time, and I was there for a couple of years, but it was also the period of time where they gained a community license, which means they were legit. And they'd been trying to get this license for years and years and years. So there is kind of no need to be pirate anymore with the internet and how streaming is. You know, you look at other really strong stations that started off as online or still are online, like NTS, for example, which is another station in London. And so, like, why would you illegally broadcast on FM if you do have something like streaming on Twitch or streaming on the internet and being able to reach far more people than just sort of in this 20-mile radius?
But do you think it's still a question of being able to cut, because with that democratization, as I think you're brilliantly describing, presumably also comes with an awful lot of noise, literally, and clutter for people. So if you're a young kid and you've got something to say and you've got some wicked kind of outlook on music and you want to play out, but presumably cutting through that might be quite a daunting task. Is it still that they might want to tie their flag to the mast of someone like what Rinse would have been, for example? Or do you think, would you give the advice to someone young now and say, just go and do it, just go and get out there and broadcast, and eventually they will come?
Yeah, I think, I guess you could look at it two ways, or you could do things in parallel, essentially. You know, if you're a DJ starting out, you're a young DJ and you want to get on a Rinse FM or a Defected radio or a Radio 1, essentially, like, I think it's always good to do stuff in parallel and just not expect that to happen. And if you have the means to stream and you're not currently on a station, you know, I would do it anyway, and the likelihood of you enjoying it is probably huge. And essentially you're just using it to market yourself.
Afrolicious Mama says pirate radio, 3 example, Mission FM, Choice FM, Woe FM. Big from Monki. Nick Murphy says, do live streams encourage you to dig deep and prep more than for a typical live club or festival set? That's interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting, actually.
Or do you feel like you go equally into both?
I would say you probably can dig deeper for live streams a little bit, but then I guess it depends, what festival you're playing and what club you're playing, because I think some clubs give you that as well, and so do some festivals, because obviously it's really sort of audience dependent, and
so
sometimes
if you think the crowd is knowledgeable in a certain place, then you could perhaps dig a bit deeper.
Exactly, but then there's also some events you might play where, okay, this is a little bit more of a commercial crowd, but I still want to do me, and I still want to play the music that I love, so I'm still going to pick a few curveballs for them, essentially, and hope they like it.
Do the curveballs come, because you started off this and you were mentioning, it sounds like your mum's my age, which is worrying, but you were mentioning your mum's like Chemical Brothers, like vinyl and all of that sort of stuff. Do you reckon curveballs come from that background of what you perhaps picked up when you were young? Do you know what I mean? Were they all and the fact that you've described those kind of records and your garage influences and ultimately, house. Yeah. That's a beautifully eclectic, lovely, rich mix, which I think you show a lot of in some of your music. Is that always going to remain? Do the curveballs come from the fact that there's that heritage, if you like? Yeah,
I think so. I think if you actually, a DJ can be well known for a genre, for playing one genre, but if you actually dig deep into their past or you ask them questions, their knowledge is so multi-genre. Yeah. If that's a word, genre.
Yeah, we'll take that.
Yeah. And I do think the curveballs come from that definitely. Simon's a great example of that. Simon Dunmore.
I agree.
His knowledge of music in general is so vast, and he'll play a tune. I'm just like, where's he whipped that out from? And that's come from his knowledge of so many genres, not just house.
Yeah, Simon Dunmore's latest selectors playlist. Yeah. I was continually WhatsApping. I'm like, I can't believe you like this. And his point back to me was, well, of course I do, because that's where it all comes from. Yeah. But in my naive perspective, I was like, gosh, that sort of stuff's on my playlist, some old 80s, slightly so. And he's like, yeah, that's where it comes from. And I love that, the real respect, if you like, of those origins to inform, if you like, the rest. So take us back. So when you were interning at someone like Rinse, what were you doing? Were you doing everything as an intern, real kind of?
Yeah, it was a proper internship. And while I was interning at Rinse, I was also interning at Ministry. I was also working at a TV production company, and then I was working on the weekends for my dad, just labouring. Wow. So I was a busy young woman.
But when you saw the inside of a radio machine, did you think this is a bit of me?
Yeah, I mean, if we're going back to the first radio station I ever saw was actually a station in South London called Radio Jackie, which is kind of a commercial radio station in South London, which was a pirate station in the 60s and 70s.
Was it? Did it come back that far?
Yeah,
I didn't realise.
Yeah.
Gosh.
And I basically I bugged this guy who works at this station called, his name's Steve, and so big up Steve. And I emailed him a lot, and all the intern places basically were gone. There wasn't any more room, but because I emailed him quite a few times, he was like, okay, look, just come in for a day, like make cups of tea, print off paper, stuff like that. And I went in for the day, and I was just really keen to learn, and I think he saw that in me, and he is the one that linked me to Rinse FM.
Oh wow!
So you just don't know where these opportunities come from. What is the likelihood that Jackie FM, a station predominantly for sort of like over 40s, would know the owners at Rinse FM, a pirate station in East London? Like you don't know how these things work.
I bet that stays with you though, because I think there's something there. There's an adage I've always sworn by, that every conversation there is always something that you take out of it. There is at least one good thing. If you go and meet people, that is always worth that meeting for probably similar reason. It's a very small world. That cliche is so true.
Tiny, but I was only there for, I don't know, 6-8 hours, and that led to a relationship with Rinse, which went on for the next 4 years after that, and then to a radio show.
But then you mentioned that you're still in your 20s now, which is kind of frightening. And by the way, I'm going to read that out before it leaves. Buff says Monki was top notch at fabric every time. There you go. How does fabric rate in your places you played?
I think it's such a holds such a strong place in my heart. Really? Fabric, because I'm from London. It's such a staple in like the DJ community in the UK, in the world, and in London essentially. And those guys gave me some great opportunities when I was young. I think I did a Fabric live CD when I was like 21 or 22 or something.
So that's a good segue. I was going to say about your age. So like you said, it feels like you've been here a while, doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
How come? Was it stuff like Radio 1 coming quite early? Which was pretty, I guess, high profile and big? Again, tell us a bit about that. And for young people watching, wanting to get into it, is that a good thing? Is it potential to derail you when you kind of are suddenly big in that respect at a young, tender age, as it were?
Yeah, it's strange because when I left school, I didn't have any qualifications, and I sort of had this plan. I was like, right, I've got this 7-year plan, and this is what I'm going to do in the next 7 years. By the time I'm 26, I'm going to be on Radio 1. But before that, I'm going to go to New York and work in a studio, and had this like really sort of grandiose plan. And then things happened really fast, and I ended up on Radio 1 at 21, which is way before I sort of planned to get on there. And yeah, it was it wasn't a shock, but it definitely happened a lot sooner than I thought it would. And then when I was there, I was kind of like, okay, now what? Like, really? What do I do now? And I always wanted to get on a Friday night. I always wanted a show on a Friday night, which never ended up happening. I held a show for 6 years. I think it's a pretty good stint there.
Huge.
Yeah, and had an amazing time and did some amazing things like Radio 1 in Ibiza, crazy. Those are the things you dream of when you're a kid. You listen to them on the radio, you listen to Radio 1 in Ibiza, and you're like, oh, I want to be there, let alone be a DJ. So I did that for 6 years. And
do they feel like moments you've made it? I know you a bit, and you're very humble naturally as a person, but do you ever get to moments like that, perhaps the Radio 1 or Ibiza weekend, for example, when you're going, bloody hell, and you give yourself the chance to exhale and go, I think I've done it?
No, I think at the time I was just always moving so fast, which isn't essentially like a healthy thing, I don't think.
No.
You do need to like stop and smell the coffee, I guess, as it were. And it wasn't until my last sort of Radio 1 in Ibiza show when I thought, I think this might be my last one because I knew I was leaving, where I really was like, oh God, it might happen again. I might come in as a guest or whatever.
You drank it in a bit.
Might have drank it in a bit more, and I think when I left, if I'm being completely honest, felt like I had a bit of a work identity crisis, as it were, because you're always introduced as, oh, this is Monki from Radio 1. It's never just it's never just Monki, or it's never just Lucy.
That's your badge.
Yeah, it's like a badge that you wore, and I wore it very, very proudly. So there was a change. I had to change, and to be fair, it's probably one of the best things that has happened to me, because you're not sort of just riding off the back of a station. But it was an interesting shift, because I didn't achieve everything that I'd set out to when I joined. But at the same time, I wasn't quite sure if I wanted to be there anymore anyway. So, and that's being completely honest. So it was a really great time, but it was an interesting shift when I left as well.
We need to say it. It's a 6-year stint. Now, Richard Hadders, Kara's World both asked questions. Richard says he's basically seen how good you are on your socials with the football, how long you play football. Kara's World said, is there crossover skills between DJ and football? We are going to get to football in a second. Just give us a minute more, because I think there's a bunch of crossover skills and I can't wait to hear all about it. Just finishing off the last point, and your very young age to be having such brilliant sort of kind of fame in its own way, you know, in a world of DJ and clubbing and, artistry and production, all that sort of stuff. And you just mentioned there something about the feeling of identity afterwards.
Yeah.
Tell us a little more about that. And maybe also there's something we can talk about here about wellness in general. Like, when you're running at a million miles an hour like that, presumably in many ways it's kind of good, because you don't sort of stop for a second and months turn into years and your success kind of takes care of itself.
Yeah.
Now you're older and wiser,
a
little bit older and wiser. Would you kind of tell the younger you, slow up, take a stock, take a moment? How do you even deal with that whole piece, wellness?
I'm not sure if I was talking to myself sort of 6 years ago, I would tell myself to slow down, because I think it was a natural progression where I realised it myself, and I had to go through that journey to realise it. And I'm happy that I did. And especially, now in the last year, where we've all had to stop essentially everything that we're used to doing, although it's been terrible for the most part, I think one of the big things to come out of it is really realising like what's important to you in this period of time, and working that into everyday life when we go back to the new normal or the normal. And I was kind of getting into that before we went into lockdown and before we went into COVID. And really, you know, if we're talking about wellness and stuff, I think balance is so important, which is why I took up football again. Something that I loved as a kid. It came before music ever did, and it's something that I completely gave up.
Because of your music career?
No, I wouldn't say it was because of my music career. I would say it was because, you know, women's football, it wasn't a professional job then, and that's what I wanted to do. I grew up supporting Arsenal, which is a team here in North London. Thierry Henry was my hero, and I played with the boys, and I never saw any women on TV, but because I played with the boys and I was so young, you know, I was 8, I was like, well, that's not a problem. I'll just be the first I'll be the first girl to get it. And then as you get older, you realise, you know, that's not reality, and I think that it was really disheartening. And I was kind of like, well, if I can't do this all the time as a job, you know, why am I going to these academies? Why am I going to these trials and things like that? So I essentially like stopped playing for a long time. I stopped playing for about 8 years, actually. And then it wasn't until I got older, I got into music, I joined Radio 1, I was going at 100 miles an hour. I was like, oh God, there's something I really miss.
That's good.
And I can't put my finger on it, what it is. And eventually I was like, it's sport. I spent my whole life playing sport. Like I said, music came late, and I'd entered this community, which I loved, and it gave me so much. But there was something from a physical aspect, not only from a physical aspect, but from a well-being aspect as well, that I was missing, and it was football.
It's brilliant that you recognised it and that you remembered. You could perhaps go decades before you recall, oh, there was something I used to do and I've frankly missed it for the last 30 years. It's great that you got in whilst you still can. And now, you know, you play to a really high level. Tell us who you play for and stuff like that. Now, we met originally actually when both of us were working in and around football and women's football and stuff like that. In fact, today's quite a big day because Sky have just been announced as a broadcaster, right, which is a big deal for here in the UK, for the Women's Premier League. Tell us a little bit about it. You play for Dulwich Hamlet?
Yeah, so I play for Dulwich Hamlet.
What position?
I'm a right winger. You can catch me at right back when we're down a few players. So yeah, I play with them. You know, we play leagues, cups, FA Cup, train a few times a week, and balance that with my work schedule with my agent here at Defected. So my agent is Andy Rayside, who works here, and he looks after my music bookings, and we have a very good system where we try and balance my footballing schedule and my festival schedule.
Well, that must be incredible. So in a normal year, let's talk non-COVID, in a normal year, and I think, again, we might have met around this time, so I'm pretty sure I saw you playing in Ibiza, or we were talking about it, and then you were literally, as in playing in front of a crowd, music, and then you were coming right back to play a match like at the weekend. Like, how on earth do you do that? So again, with the context of wellness, and that must be pretty hardcore, right?
Yeah, I think so. When I first got back into football, you know, in my early 20s, there wasn't much balance. If I'm being honest, I was, you know, I remember playing a show in New York, flying on the red eye, landing, and then going straight to a cup match and playing. Like, that is just not sustainable now, to be honest.
Did you win?
No, we lost. We lost, and I'm pretty sure I couldn't see straight.
Poor thing.
Yeah, so, you know, I think, you know, I quickly realised that that's not sustainable, but also something that I just don't really want to be doing. No. So now, in terms of how we balance it, you know, I think I'm really lucky that I work with Andy, and it's one of the reasons that I really love Defected, is because they realise what's important outside of music. You know, not only is music unbelievably important to me, but so is my health side, and so is football. And I think it's extremely hard when you have these two things that may not fit together the best. You know, late nights and playing football probably, you know, they don't fit the best if you don't balance them well. But having someone that really understands how important this side of my life is, and I'm not just going to take a show for the sake of taking money.
That's nice.
You know, I'll weigh it up, and you know, I want to make training sessions, and I want to play against Crystal Palace, but it might mean that I either have to not take the show, maybe take it another time, try and slot it in somewhere else, or maybe not take it at all. And so, it's been really important to find the right people to work with, I think.
And what about, so again, maybe this is the naive me thinking, that buzz. So I've never been a footballer, and I've never been able to DJ. And I bloody love both.
Yeah.
And I am the punter, the other end. I'm the punter in the stand, with the hairs on the back of his neck. I'm getting the goosebumps, and I'm the punter in front of the audience or behind the stage, wherever I might be lucky enough to be, still getting that same goosebump experience. When you are you, and you're hitting a 25-yard screamer, top right-hand corner, or when you are you, and you're playing an absolute huge set, and you're finishing with Donna Summer, I Feel Love in front of what's better, and are they comparable, those respective thrills that we as an audience get? Are they comparable for you as the footballer or DJ?
Oh, God. I mean, they're both amazing, and I think they are slightly different, but also very similar. Like,
Go on, explain.
I think, if I score a goal, I'm usually yelling and screaming. Someone served something. If I play a tune and it goes down well, I'm probably not going to yell in your face, but it is that same big buzz. Yeah, it is that same big buzz. And, I think the similarities between those things, because I was asked this the other day and they were like, why were you drawn to those two things in particular? And I kind of had to ask myself the question because I didn't have the answer straight away. And I think I sort of dwelled on it a little bit and I came to the conclusion that those two things are very much about connecting with people. And that's what I love to do. I love connecting to people. I love talking to new people. I love the buzz of scoring a goal or, playing a tune that goes down really well. And there's so much crossover that I don't think I really thought about too much for a long time until maybe sort of in, last year or so.
Maybe you shouldn't.
Yeah.
Because that's you just been drawn to being able to be good at the things you're passionate about. And that's a pretty lovely thing. Daryl 2803 has corrected me and said it was a BBC Sport deal too. I think I just mentioned Sky. Shout out BBC Sport.
Yeah, it was too. it was both of them.
Sorry. But do you know what? There's something there media-wise which is quite interesting. So again, I think going back a year or two, you were working with Copper 90.
Yeah.
Doing a podcast, an award-winning podcast.
Yeah.
I seem to recall with an ex-US footballer, Heath Pearce, presenting. You were doing that like for the Women's World Cup. Yeah. You were flying out with the likes of Defected to Ibiza and so on. So that's quite the balance.
Yeah.
Let's go a bit more into was there something, because you have a fiercely kind of articulate understanding of the women's game, of course, you play it, but also in terms of the challenges, the barriers, what you've personally had to overcome and your kind of piece of the wider puzzle, if you like. Does that remain a driver to you to frankly get parity? For example, is that a thing that burns within you, or is it, look, I just love the game and it's really good for me?
No, yeah, I think it definitely is. I think if we're going to go back to when I started playing football when I was a kid, a lot of those issues are the reasons that I stopped playing. It was the first place that I experienced racism as like an 11-year-old, never experienced that before. And also, I think that was also why I was really drawn to like clubland, because I felt, like I mentioned before, I felt very much like I could be myself. I saw all different kinds of people, all different kinds of, genders and people from all over the place, all over the world, all over London, and it was very much a place of like acceptance that I hadn't really experienced before in that capacity. Even in football, where I would go to trials as a young girl and I would be the only minority, and then I would experience things, nasty comments that, other kids would say and stuff like that. So even though that is something that I loved, it did not give me that sense of community at the time that music did. And I found that community again in football, like later down the line.
Presumably you searched for it a bit harder, did you? It was something, as opposed to I'm walking into a club and it's incredible, and everyone's being a bit like me and they all look completely different, and this. Presumably you have to go and find that tribe a bit more.
Yeah, definitely. I was so lucky to come across a group of girls that I did, because essentially because of my past experiences with it, I would just, at first I would just turn up to training and I'd play and I'd go home and I wouldn't really connect with them, really. And I didn't tell them what I did. I didn't tell them the DJ. I didn't tell them I was a radio presenter. And they ended up finding out through social media or something, and then ended up coming to Warehouse Project.
That's so cool.
So eventually, like you can only sort of live a double life for so long. But it's exactly what I didn't really want to be doing. I didn't really want to be living
Do you take the
a double life.
Hamlet team out now to?
Oh
big
yeah,
events?
mate. Yeah, definitely. 100%. They're always
Eve
there
of a
all
big
the
game.
time. You know, they were supposed to come to Defected Croatia last year. Unfortunately, obviously there was no Defected Croatia, but.
Well, hopefully they're coming this year.
Oh mate, it was a full 11 aside coming last year, but yeah, and obviously Defected sponsored our team for 2 seasons. You know, Defected were our back sponsor for 2 seasons, and yeah, there's some lovely crossover, and I'm really happy that I allowed that door to open a little bit more. So going back to your question,
Sorry,
you know, making the game, diversifying the game, and making the gender gap in terms of equality smaller, massive driving forces as to why it worked.
But you don't have, do you see, and by the way, Cara as well says, Monki, you're a real champion for us women, which I thought was very nice.
Thank you.
5 clapping emojis as well. Do any such challenges exist in Clubland?
Yeah, of course, definitely. I think maybe I was a little bit lucky when I was younger because I was a little bit ignorant to it. And I was, to be fair, at Rinse surrounded by people who really championed me as well at a young age. There was a woman there who worked there at the time called Sarah Lockhart who ran the station with Genius at the time, and seeing her in a position of power and quite high up in the station was really engaging for me as a young woman trying to make it through the music industry. So I think I was lucky in that sense, but at the same time, there were 60 DJs on the station, and I think there were 3 of us that were women.
Yeah.
So
your point right at the start of this conversation is as true today as it was then.
Yeah.
To an impressionable girl watching Thierry Henry, to a girl now watching you DJing, for example, a couple of weeks ago with Defected, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
That's those symbol, or you and Annie Mac's experience.
Yeah.
That's still important, right?
Yeah, definitely. And especially coming from, I'm my mum's side of the family are Malay, Filipino, my dad's side's English. So especially coming from a background with half of my family are immigrants, it's really important as well. And this is only something I've really realised in the last few years, to be that person in front of the camera or behind the decks or playing football for a group of women, even smaller in capacity, who can see themselves in me and then think, oh, maybe I could do that. So not only just girls in general, but Southeast Asian girls as well, because there's not many of us that you see anyway in football or behind the decks. There's not
That's
a
wonderful,
lot.
and that must be a continual burning driver inside
Yeah.
you, both a brilliant footballing skill level as you are, and a brilliant DJ as well. That must be a lovely continual, almost if not an underlying purpose, but a lovely byproduct of something that is ultimately your passion and something that you enjoy.
Yeah, definitely. And I think as I've got older, I've definitely realised that doing, I think when I was younger, I was very ambitious, but maybe I wasn't ambitious for the right reasons. I was like, what is success to me? It was being on Radio 1, maybe it was nice having a nice car. And those are all very half-empty reasons. And when you realise that doing things or doing the things that you love mean a lot more to you, if actually you're thinking of the wider picture, it gives you a lot more, and it gives people around you a lot more, So
Does that just come with age, do you think?
I think so. I think definitely. And I mean, I can't. If you're thinking those kind of things when you're younger, good on you. But did I expect myself to be thinking them back then? Probably not. So yeah, I think it does come with age a little bit, but
So
kids are more woke now, man.
Well, they're certainly more aware.
Yeah, definitely.
I didn't have a bloody clue about any of the above, and that's why I'm particularly interested in drilling down into this. You are a brilliant example of someone who quite literally lives within and works and is making this incredible career within things that you love, your passions. We talked very briefly just before we came on today. I saw some of the guys would have seen it who are watching. Scott Galloway is a brilliant guy, by the way. He made a real point on a recent interview about following your passions is a bit of a myth, how you can't really do it, you can't really make a career from it. And I think he was perhaps going down a route more of, look, it's a very difficult route and you might end up, frankly, empty-handed and disappointed.
Yeah.
Now, when I was young, I didn't think you could either, as in I just didn't even know. simply wasn't aware of the certain insides of certain places, let alone working in football or music and something like that. If you were talking again to the younger Monki again, a 14, 15-year-old perhaps, would you go, absolutely, do this exactly like you've done?
Yeah.
Because that feels like a really legit route, interning at these places and finding out about it, and maybe you would have come back to football sooner.
Yeah, it's a hard one, isn't it? Because like, if you sort of promote the fact that, you know, follow your passions and, you know, it all fall into place, like, it's really not as simple as that, and you don't want to sugarcoat it because it is a lot of hard work. But to say it's not impossible or it's not the right thing to do, I think is a bit rough. Like, it's doable.
Yes.
You can see people do it and you can watch people do it, but it is very much about being able to see those people do it. Otherwise, you're just not going to think it's a thing. Because, like you said, when you were younger, you didn't know that these places existed. And for me, when I was younger, before I found radio, I very much thought that work was a place that you wore a suit and you went to work. You know, my mum worked in an office, or work was a place where you got really dirty. It was physical and hard work, which is what my dad did. So I looked at those two things and I was kind of like, well, I really don't want. I'm not sure I want to do either of them, but I have no idea what I want to do. And before music came around, and after sort of football like disappeared from my interest, in that period of time where I was like 15, 16, going through GCSEs and stuff, I didn't have a clue. No. I did not have a clue what I wanted to do. And so finding radio was, you know, amazing.
Finding radio for you and getting out and doing it, and I've always said that as well, any young people looking to be at a job like a Defected or previous places, I'm like, just go and physically go and make stuff as much as you physically can. Don't try and pigeonhole yourself. Again, would that be your advice back to those young people who are like, they might be a producer, they might be making records, they might be feeling their way around, you know, would you go, just go and get it out there, get it published, get it made, don't overthink it? Is that a general good kind of a piece of advice?
Yeah, I think so. If you're able to, and, you know, you have the resources to, then take advantage of it. Because, you know, there are people out there that can't, and it's harder for them. And so if you are in the position to, but even if you're not, like, you can find find ways to work around it. But for me, I didn't necessarily have the resources to, you know, I didn't have a lot of money and stuff like that, but getting to know people was so important for me, because you'd be surprised as well the opportunities that people present to you if you're just, you know, willing to work hard and you're very keen and stuff like that. So for me, it was really getting to know people that really helped me. You know, I met people on MySpace and stuff like that. That's how I met Annie, a message on MySpace. I would just turn up to parties, you know, raves. Yeah. And sort of start talking to people around the booth and handing them CDs and USBs and, you know, just turning up to events and having conversations like this.
I think that's so good. Yeah. Simon Dunmore did that brilliant piece when we put a Calvin record out recently, where it effectively kept Calvin's letters.
That is so crazy, isn't it?
But that exists all the time. Yeah. I love the fact that they were kept, of course, and it became a lovely story. Yeah. But people sort of forget how your point of handing USB stick around a booth to someone you admire is a point of admiration. It's, I really love what you do and I think I'm relevant to your world. Yeah. There's very few people who go get lost to that. Yeah. It's a really nice, intelligent, I think, and thoughtful way. And again, we're in a pretty tumultuous, difficult era, pandemic, post-pandemic, where you want to describe it as. You've got a very, you know, an awful lot of young people. The bit that I'm particularly interested in, which I love, and I would love people to take out of this, is this idea of being plural. Like, there's not many people, I don't think, who would have gone, I can be this good as a DJ, making records and so on, and I'm playing to this high level, football. Yeah. You know, that's quite the combination, I think. Yeah. And it clearly isn't easy. Yeah. But you're almost using the sport as a nice counterbalance to perhaps some of the hectic life of a DJ.
Yeah, and I think it's also, you know, it's ended up presenting me with work opportunities as well. You know, talking about the podcast that I did with Copa a couple of years ago during the Women's World Cup, and there's lots of crossover when it came to broadcasting a radio show to being able to present something for BT Sport, or being able to be a part of the England Lionesses campaign and stuff. There's lots of crossover. When I did so there was this big sort of campaign at the beginning of the 2019 World Cup where they told the world who the players going to the World Cup were going to be, and they asked me, they're like, would you like to announce a player? And I said, yeah, I'd love to. They were like, we've got amazing people on board. They had like David Beckham on board and all these people, and then they're like, and we'd like you to do one as well. I was like, okay, like quite a big deal. And they just said, we just want you to make a bit of content around it, however you'd like, be creative and stuff like that. And they gave me Kira Walsh, who plays for Man City, and I think it was her first World Cup. And it was so much fun. But the way I did it was I was able to sort of bring in that music element as well. So I just got a videographer to come down with me to a set, to a club, and I put on my USB stick, I named the track Kira Walsh. So when you zoomed into the deck, it said Kira Walsh, and when the music dropped, there was big fan noise and stuff like that. But it was just fun to be able to, be a part of this amazing campaign with the FA, but also bring in this, me DJing and music element side.
But the fact that you can as well, and you could put that music.
Yeah.
And so again, without putting words in your mouth, presumably if there's aspiring kind of talent out there, it's maybe if you want to be a presenter, think of the other bits being around a presenter that will help you on that journey. Likewise, musician, artist, DJ, right? Because you do an awful lot there. You produce, you make, you create, you play out. Do you know what I mean? There's a lot. You present. We did a piece of work where you presented the Champions League party out in Lisbon. There's a lot of strings to that bow.
Yeah. That was so much fun as well. And I think you and George called me up about that, and we're like, look, we've got this thing, with Heineken, UEFA Champions League, return to European football. They want us to do these big parties across the world. Idris Elba doing a show in Amsterdam, you play in Lisbon, and you present sort of in between links. And I was like, this is like my dream. This is my dream bit of content right here.
I think Thierry Henry was involved as well.
But
annoyingly not on the same day as you were shooting.
No, he introduced a set. So
I think he introduced Bob Sinclair, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. Yeah, and I was like, so gutted it wasn't me, but I was like, it's fine. But yeah, those kind of moments where you do, you get to put these two passions together, they're so amazing, and
I agree.
I just wouldn't let people tell you that it's not possible, because it is.
49,000 people watching you at the moment. We've got about 10 minutes left. Afrolicious Mama says, do you have a well-being routine to manage your lifestyle? Of course you do.
Yeah, I do, yeah.
Of course you do. Go on, give us the secrets.
So in the morning, I have lemon and hot water, meditate for 10 minutes. I take a 2-minute cold shower.
Do you 2 minutes?
Yeah, 2 minutes, yeah. I haven't upgraded to the ice baths yet. I think my neighbours would think I was mad. I'd have a coffee. I work out almost every day. But when I say workout, it's not just smashing weights or going for a run. It could be yoga, it could be stretching, mobility. Rest is a part of working out. You have to rest. It's really important. And then I try to make exercise fun. It's got to be fun. I think we're so pressurised to work out, to look a certain way and stuff like that. And when you're a kid, you're running around. It's exercise, but it's fun, and almost every kid did that. And I think it's important to find that as an adult as well.
I was going to say, and do you think that is now? Do you think you're abnormal with such a brilliantly, frankly, healthy, well-rounded kind of wellness-based routine, or do you go, no, look, there's a hell of a lot of people, all the way up from sports people to DJs doing exactly the same thing these days?
I think maybe in this industry, some people might think it's a bit abnormal, but I think it's becoming normalised because people are realising how important it is. I mean, if you've watched the Avicii documentary, that says a lot, really. And I'm not touring half as much as that guy did. So I think it's definitely becoming normalised. I think, big brands like Defected doing work with charities like Mind is really important.
Yeah.
And the more people talk about it, the better.
Yeah, the DJ EZ stream that we did from here.
Yeah.
Was that in January? It feels like a decade ago. Was wonderful in that, but the amount of people commenting and just how important, and he's been a brilliant advocate of that. And there's so many who've done such great stuff, and we were just pleased to facilitate it, but it feels like it's just more necessary than ever. But again, I think young people, listening to people like yourself, putting such importance in it, it's a really big thing. Couple more questions, a few minutes left. Nicobin? Anyway, what's the story behind your name?
My surname is Monkman. There were 3 Lucies in my class at school. And it was actually just my school nickname with my mates. And then when I was a teenager, I had to choose a DJ name. Yeah.
Worked. Nick Murphy, what do you think are next steps to level the playing field for underrepresented groups in both sport and the music industry?
Pardon the footy pun.
Exactly. That's a really nice kind of point in general. Crikey. Well, we sort of touched upon it certainly with how important it was for you to, frankly, hear Annie Mac's voice for the very first time. And I love the fact that you're saying how a small part of you every time you're playing out feels like there is work that you are doing in a positive way. Is there anything else you're doing going forward in other work? I know you're involved in all sorts of different stuff to further that cause, be it...
So in quick answer to that question, I think probably, we've touched on it before. I think financial backing when it comes to like sport and stuff like that from a grassroots level is really, really important. Representation, just seeing people, other women doing things, whether that be being a pundit, being a football player, being a DJ. And in terms of personal projects, so there's a group, myself, a woman called Al, who's the drummer from Sports Team, which is a Mercury-nominated band here in England, and Solon, who's a teammate of mine, but also she works for Football Beyond Borders.
Awesome.
And we're starting a sort of a platform where we really just want to, I guess, redefine the word exercise into more of like an inclusive world. We think of forms of exercise as, like I said a minute ago, like lifting weights and smashing a hit session, but we want to broaden that and really celebrate other kinds of movement, essentially. Amazing. Which is could be anything from gardening to stretching and yoga, and so we're working on a platform to do that. So watch this space.
I like that. Well, maybe that's related to a question here from Signals. I'd like to ask, how did you find the motivation to keep going? And I'm not sure specifically what part that's to. It might have been some of the barriers and challenges you faced, or it might be almost frankly right now. But.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong, mate. Like, I know this year's been extremely tough for everyone, but I might maybe come across super motivated during this an hour of conversation. But there have definitely been periods of time in lockdown where
I fed you coffee before you started.
Yeah. Well, I've just some days it's just good to just exist basically, and just sit on the sofa and chill out. So I don't think.
That's interesting. So you've just described a really brilliant routine. It's not quite Orlando Bloom style.
No.
But you're saying it's just as important sometimes to just go, today is just today.
100%. There's some days I'd wake up and I'm like, you know what, don't fancy a cold shower today, and that's fine, and I'm not going to take it.
That'd be me every single day.
Yeah. So I think I find motivation in other people. I think.
Really?
Yeah. I think in meeting other people and hearing their stories, stuff like that.
I can well appreciate that. I think feeding off energy is probably the wrong way of framing it, but being able to have those conversations, or the likes of things like this, or it might be, so one of the things about social media, there's a lot wrong with social media in the respect, the kind of fighting for your position in terms of appearance versus someone else and assuming their life is incredible. But the nice part is the sheer connection that you can feed off it, and whether that be bringing it back to the start of this entire conversation, you playing in that hatch over there and 28,000 people are sticking crazy emojis to say how good it is. Yeah. That's a feedback loop that you don't ordinarily get, right?
Yeah.
And there's something to be said for that.
Yeah, and especially now, when we can't see each other, we can't be in a field all, singing along to a record, or we can't be in a stadium all there for the same reason. I think, going back to my point, I think when we started at the beginning of this conversation, why do we do all these things? And it's connecting with people, and I don't know how to explain it. There's got to be some sort of scientific explanation for the feeling that you have when you're in a space with so many people experiencing the same thing and celebrating the same thing.
100%. I've been being shown a really giant clock that says 1:57, which means I think I've got about 60 seconds left. On that note, future, this year, we've just had quite the year. We're still sort of in it, kind of, but I bet you're getting lots of bookings for lots of very hopeful people. that there's stuff going on. Are you hopeful about the year ahead, the summer ahead, and all of that sort of stuff?
Yeah, I am very optimistic. I'm optimistic that there's, this summer's going to go ahead in some capacity. Who knows, honestly, because there's no guarantee. But I am feeling optimistic about it, and I really hope to see people back, in a club, at festivals. Hopefully Croatia. Fingers crossed. That would be like the best return ever.
Can you imagine? You actually wrote that tweet about a year ago, so you can imagine that first one back.
Yeah, imagine the first rave back. I mean, it's just going to be mental, isn't it?
On that note, the first note back, thank you, first rave back, thank you so much for being here, Monki. That was amazing. I could sit to you all day, and I can't believe an hour's just gone by. Thank you so much for watching and for listening. We'll be back very soon, and please get more of your questions in for them. But for now, have a great day. Thanks so much.